Loves, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Ale, and today's video I'm going to be showing you guys my 5-star reads, and I have 3 books that I'm going to recommend to you to read if you guys haven't yet. This is a different type of video because I haven't filmed any book related videos, but if you know anything about me, I love reading, as you can tell by my shelves. If I'm not like watching YouTube or like Netflix, at the gym with my boyfriend, any activity that I like to do, I'm more than likely reading. It is my favorite hobby, I would say. And I have 6 books that I would like to recommend to you guys, or 6 books that are my 5-star reads that if you guys haven't read, you guys totally should. And then I have 3 that are not 5-star reads, but I would totally recommend. So with that being said, I'm gonna start with one of my favorite books, and it's Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. It is a brother's best friend trope, and I know there's so many people that hate on Colleen Hoover and all that stuff, but I have 2 of her books that I'm showing you guys as my 5-star reads. This book destroyed me in the best way possible. It made me cry like the last, I don't even know, 30, probably more pages. There's just such a good plot in here, and it's just so realistic in a way. Like, it's something that totally would happen. I will say that one thing I didn't like about it, kind of a spoiler, is that there is a family issue that occurs, and I don't really love books like that. But this book is honestly so short. I finished it in like 2 days. I read it like 2-ish years ago maybe, and I loved it. So I 10 out of 10 recommend reading this book if you just want to read something, maybe not easy is the right word, but something that will just get you into wanting to read more books. 10 out of 10 recommend this book. Regretting You by Colleen Hoover is my next book. I just read the first sentence in the back of it, and to like remind myself what the book was kind of about. And there is just so many things that happen in here. You have kind of like a mother point of view in this book and a daughter point of view, and they're both grieving, and they're going through kind of like the same situation but are handling it completely different. And there's just like so many things that go into this book, and I loved it so much. There's like not one thing I can say bad about this book. The end result to this book was probably one of my favorite endings to a book. It's just so distraught. That's not a word. It just destroyed me, and I can't talk about this book without like, I don't know, this book makes me feel some type of way. I just also think that the whole idea of having 2 different people go through the same thing, grieve about the same thing, and dealing with it differently, and then how it separates them from each other for quite some time, is just I can eat this up. Another extremely sad book that I'm sure you guys have seen on social media of any kind is If He Had Been With Me. I love this book because it's like childhood best friends, and oh my gosh, the ending, like, I really think I want to reread this book sometime soon because oh my gosh, I can't talk about it without like, I'm trying to keep this spoiler free. But basically it's just this girl named Autumn and this guy named Finn, and they kind of grow apart from each other throughout the years, but little do they both know that they both still love each other in a more romantic way, and they don't find out about it until it's too late. That's all I'm saying about this book, and it crushed me. And I know there's a second book that came out, but I haven't not that I haven't heard like good reviews on the second book or the second point of view to this story, but I haven't been convinced by any like one who's read the book that's talked about it, so that's why I haven't reached into buying it. But this book, I 10 out of 10 recommend. This book will make you cry, and if it doesn't make you cry, I don't know if you have a heart. This book, After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love any book written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have like 3 other books by her that I've read. This book in particular just made so much sense in a way. It's about this couple who have been married and they start to fall out of love, and they decide to take a break, a 1-year break apart from each other. And this kind of happens because they've been their first everything since forever, and they think that their marriage is kind of falling apart because they never got to experience anything else by themselves. So they're taking this year to kind of learn about themselves and do stuff by themselves. But you get the girl's point of view, Lauren's point of view, throughout this whole entire book, and you just kind of see how much they both need each other, even though their marriage is falling apart. There's so much like other things that lead to them deciding to take the 1 year apart break thing. But honestly, I want to read this book again. Just, I don't know how to describe it, but just talking about this book, my heart is like, it hurts. Because it's such a realistic, maybe not realistic, like you don't see these type of things happening all the time, but it's something that I know like marriages struggle and like trying to make it work on both ends. And it's just, oh my gosh, it's so good. I love anything Taylor Jenkins Reid. The back of it literally says, this is a love story about what happens when the love fades. Just read it. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is actually a book that I just finished reading, and it's Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren, and I've read The Unhoneymooners by them, and I want to read so many more books by them because their reading doesn't even make you feel like you're reading. Like, it's not hard literature, it is just so good. And it's just, I think the thing with me is that I love like rekindling type of books, because like honestly all of them, like this one, it's a marriage rekindling, and then If He Had Been With Me is a rekindling story. Regretting You in a way is like a mother-daughter rekindling. So I just think I love that trope in general. But it's just, you get to see the like present and the past in these two characters, and get to see how wholesome and how loving their growing up was, and how much they both needed each other and like helped each other through life. And then out of nowhere they stopped communicating and talking, and they end up meeting up again, and you end up finding out why they stopped talking. And even though the thing that made them stop talking seems so like bizarre, and so like it's something little that became so huge, you understand why it happened at the same time. This book is just so good, and it's also one that I would recommend to read during the summer, just because it has that type of feeling to it. But honestly, it has all the type of feelings. I also wish I would have gotten the original cover to this, but I didn't get my hands on it, and this is what I got. But I still love the book so much. The next book that I'm going to be showing you, I know is one that isn't talked about that much, and it is The Scent Keeper. And actually I had a teacher gift this to me for my birthday last year, and it's more like a fiction book. There's no real romance in it, and it kind of gives a fantasy feel to it. but this book was so good. I finished it in like one sitting. I couldn't stop reading. There is so many like mystical type of things that happen. It's just about this girl named Emmeline, and she lives on a remote island with just her father, and her father teaches her everything about the natural world through her senses, and they end up having to go back into the city, and she finds all these things that weren't necessarily true. And I love this book. Go read it. This is if you are watching this video and you want to know what to read and you want to take one book out of this whole thing, read this one. And now on to showing you guys the 3 books that I recommend that aren't necessarily 5-star reads. There were 4-star reads on my Goodreads, but I'm pretty sure I would have rated them like a 4.75. All these 3 books. The first one was recommended to me by a teacher, and it's All My Rage. It's about these two. It's kind of about a life of this guy who is Pakistani, and he lives in California now, and you kind of get a sense of like past and present again in this book. Not so much, but you do have it, and just a struggle of the race in general and all the inequality things. And I loved this book. This was so good. I don't necessarily like reading books that are political fiction in a way, but this book was so good. I'm just thinking about it, and I remember I read it on a trip to California, so it felt like I was there in a way, but I obviously not in the same sense as the book. And there's just so many, like, it's such a realistic book too. You can get yourself not in the point of view of the characters, but you can get yourself in the book and see how things are happening and why certain things affect the characters, and I just love this book so much. The next book is probably an obvious recommendation. It is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This came out a year ago, and I read it literally. I pre-ordered it, so I got it the day that it came out, and I was so happy about that. This book is kind of about this couple who was engaged and is no longer engaged, but they have a trip with their friends, or like a week trip with their friends every single summer, and they still haven't told their friends that they're not engaged, so they have to fake their engagement, and then the truth comes out, and then this whole thing happens. And it was an amazing book, and also a really good book to read during the summer, so I 10 out of 10 recommend this book too. Also on the back it has like authors quotes, and there's like Colleen Hoover and Taylor Jenkins Reid and just so many amazing authors in like the Associated Press and like all these big companies that do literature stuff. And it was just such a vibey, in the mood feels book, and I 10 out of 10 recommend this one too. The last one is another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. If you guys have seen on TikTok what's it called, the movie, and it's Zendaya in it, The Challenger I think it is. I actually finished reading this book at the beginning of the year, and then all those like trailer clips and stuff started coming out, and I was like, for a minute I thought it was this book being put into a movie form, but then I realized it wasn't, but it gives out the same exact feels. It's about this girl named Gary. Gary Soto's back, and she kind of grows up with her father's input into tennis, and she gets into it at a really young age, and she makes it so big for herself and for a woman in the tennis industry. and she retires, and she decides to come back to hold her title. And it's just another kind of like present and past point of view situation in this book too. But I honestly loved it so much. I remember it was hard for me to get into it at first, but I was coming out of a book slump at the beginning of the year, so I was struggling with that. But the last like 50% of the book I finished in one night. Like I stayed up till like 3 just to read this book. And it's also not an extremely huge book, and it also gives me all the summer vibes and feelings to it. And if you guys haven't noticed, I love anything Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is also not necessarily like a romance book. It's just kind of fiction, and it has an amazing plot, and it's also in the same world as what's it called? The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Malibu Rising, which are another 2 books that I would recommend, but I'm not going to talk about in this video. I will say that Malibu Rising is also another book that you could read during the summer because it gives all those vibes too. But it's also kind of like in the same world. You don't have to read those 3 books in any specific order. I also think Daisy Jones and the Six is part of that world, but I haven't read the book yet. But there's no specific order that you have to read the 4 books, I believe. They're just interconnected kind of standalones, and you have characters from each kind of book pop up in the next, if that makes any sense. But this book was so good, and a 10 out of 10 recommend. Yeah. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this different type of video. I love you guys so much, and if you like seeing videos like this, specific book videos, just comment down below what other type of book videos you'd like to see. And that being said, see you next week. Bye.